Today I fucked up by telling an old friend I didn't see him at his own wife's funeral. So last week, I seriously fucked up. I was at a hardware store looking for a part and I couldn't find it. So I grabbed a random worker who was walking by to ask where it was. As soon as the guy stopped, I recognized him as someone from my high school friend group. He was never my best friend, but we hung out a lot with the group and I liked him. I hadn't seen him for years at this point. Not for any reason, our lives just went in different directions. So he shows us where the part was and we start talking. How you been, etc. He asks me if I'm in touch with any of the people we used to hang out with. I tell him not really, but once in a while. It's been almost 25 years since we graduated, so not a surprise. Here's where I fucked up. I suddenly remember that I did see the whole group somewhere a few years back. So I say, oh yeah, I did see everybody at a funeral a few years ago. Were you there? I don't remember you being there. He kind of gets a quizzical look on his face and asks me if it was one friend's funeral, a guy who OD'd a while back. No, I know it wasn't his. I was out of the country for that one. Quizzical look intensifies. Right at that second, it hit me. The funeral I'm half remembering was for this guy's wife who died 5-6 years ago of cancer. She was very young and left him with 2 young kids. It was really sad. I went because my other friends were all in town from all over and I wanted to show solidarity even if I hadn't been in touch. Realizing this made my stomach drop and I just wanted to disappear. Since we weren't that close and I hadn't seen him for so long, I didn't want to just be like, OMG, I'm so sorry, that was your wife who died and I forgot about. So I kind of just said, well anyway, I'm sure I'll see you around, and left. I felt so bad, but I judged in the moment, perhaps wrongly, that feigning ignorance and looking like an asshole was better than opening an old wound at work for someone I'd barely seen once since high school. I'm sorry man, I do feel like shit. Too long did not read. Ran into an old high school friend, told him I didn't remember seeing him at a funeral. It was his wife's funeral. Fuck me. Edit. Yes, he was at his own wife's funeral. I just didn't remember whose funeral it was right away because I didn't remember talking to him like I did the rest of the group. That's because I had gone through the line and only interacted with him long enough to shake his hand and say something like, I'm so sorry for your loss, I'm thinking about you guys, and letting him get on to closer friends and family. Talk about digging your own grave. I had a friend named Taylor. She married this dude Kyle. Unfortunately, she passed suddenly around the start of COVID, which is also right around me and my wife split. Maybe 2 months later, I get a text from a different Kyle, asking how I'm doing and what's up with me. So I type up an update that obviously includes a bit of complaining, lamenting about my wife leaving me, and send it over. Then, to my horror, I realize it's not the other Kyle. I had just complained about my very much alive wife leaving me, to the man who wasn't even able to have a proper funeral for his wife because of lockdowns. A lot happens in 25 years old groups from high school and new groups of friends formed in college and work, spouses of friends. Honestly, he probably never put 2 and 2 together. You may have felt embarrassed internally, but it doesn't sound like he caught your mistake and probably thought you were in a hurry. So I'm confused. Was he not at his wife's funeral? Or you just didn't place him there in the memory at first because you were thinking of the group? Oh no, that one won't leave you for long. If you two weren't close, I doubt he put 2 and 2 together. Especially if you guys didn't interact at the funeral. Even if you did briefly, between grief and everything else that comes with loss, there's a good chance he wouldn't remember the interaction. Also, 5-6 years ago was right before the pandemic. There were a lot of funerals going on around that time. It could have been anyone. Today I fucked up by letting my boss stare at my computer screen while my chat GPT history was on it. I, 28 female, was writing an email for the company I work at, and I frequently use GPT to correct the grammar in my writing when using the generic email of the company. My boss, 35 male, passed behind me staring at the screen and giggle. We're pretty friendly, so we talk pretty straightforward. I tell him, what are you doing? Checking my GPT history? He tells me no, but now that you mentioned it, and he start looking at it on the left side of my screen with a smile. I'm not too bothered, but he instantly turn around without saying a word and move on to other things. Had a weird feeling on the moment. I check my history and see it's skull. Numbness in mouth after semen is the 3rd conversation title in my history. I'm such a fucking idiot. 2 days ago my husband and I had fun and well, things happened, and at the end of a BJ I had a mouthful. Nothing abnormal there, but a few seconds after I spat it out my mouth felt all weird and almost numb. Therefore, curious, I asked GPT. It's my personal account. If it was something normal or common, since it's the first time this happened to me ever. Well, the answer was vague and basically no, it doesn't seem normal, but it went away quickly, so whatever. But now I'm dying a little inside. He seemed to not want to bring it up, which I'm happy about, but OMG, I'm an idiot. I instantly deleted this conversation history, but it is clearly too late. Too long did not read. I was using my personal Chat GPT account and my boss saw one of my conversation history which was numbness in mouth after semen. Chat GPT is not a search engine, don't use it looking for medical advice. It makes things up. If you had been using condoms with spermicidal lubricant, Trojans with ninoxanol 9, for example, that could cause numbness. Dear God, do not use LLMs for questions. Hey, have you heard of Google? Why the fuck are you asking AI for medical advice? You fucked it up in using GPT at all. It is a language model, not a search engine. Get rid of that broken magic shell.